Everyone. Excuse me. Well, we're going to get started. Thank you, first of all, for being here. I really appreciate it. Last month, in the month of December, we started the Beatitudes. We got to Beatitude and including Beatitude number 3. Excuse me. So tonight we'll be starting with Beatitude number 4. The sheets that you have that have the Beatitudes on it has Beatitude 3, but we actually printed those because of Beatitude 4 being near the bottom of that sheet. When we begin, we're going to show a video by Father Robert Barron that talks about the Beatitudes. You might remember this one from last month. But it's a very beautiful video because it describes exactly how our life can be if we have the ability to live the Beatitudes. Now, there are 8 Beatitudes. Can we live on every given day all 8 of those Beatitudes? It's difficult to say. Probably not. Can we live one out of the 8? There's a good chance we can. There's probably a good chance we do. So let's start off watching our video, and then after that we'll get into a prayer, and then we'll start with Beatitude number 4.
Standing in front of Matthias Grunewald's great painting, the Eisenheim altarpiece. It's one of the most spiritually powerful and brutally realistic depictions of the crucifixion in Western art. Look at Jesus' mouth, just agape in speechless anguish. Look at the terrible wounds in his hands and his feet, the blisters and wounds all over his body. There's nothing the least bit sentimental about this portrayal. I'm here because of something Thomas Aquinas said. Thomas said, if you want the perfect exemplification of the Beatitudes, look to Christ crucified. He specified, if you want to be happy, despise what Jesus despised on the cross, and love what Jesus loved on the cross. What did he despise? Those 4 things in which we typically seek our happiness. Wealth, he has none of it. He's stripped naked. Pleasure, he's at the limit of psychological and physical suffering. Power, he has none. He's nailed to the cross. He can't even move. Honor, they mock him as he's publicly displayed, crucified at the end of his life. Jesus is detached from the 4 things in which we typically seek our joy. And what did he love on the cross? He loved doing the will of his Father. He was on the cross the single-hearted one. He was on the cross the one who hungers for righteousness. And therefore on the cross he was the ultimate peacemaker. He was on the cross the ultimate bearer of the divine mercy. Though it's very strange to say, though it's a very high paradox, if Aquinas is right, that is a picture of a happy man. And there's more. Notice, please, how John the Baptist to the right indicates Jesus, but in this odd, contorted way. It's as though all of our expectations have to be turned around, and then we can see that that indeed is a picture of freedom. That indeed is a picture of joy.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. The Beatitudes, which is chapter 5 of Matthew, verses 1 to 12. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the earth. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. And blessed are they who suffer for persecution for justice' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. So if you're good enough in your handout to turn to Beatitude number 4. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. To help us understand this beatitude, we first have to ask ourselves what is meant by righteousness. And righteousness means being complete accordance with what is just, honorable, and godly. Righteousness are those things that are upright, virtuous, noble, and morally correct and ethical. You could say that righteousness is a lifestyle that is in complete conformity with the will of God. It is a lifestyle that Jesus not only finds pleasing, but also one that he approves of. Now, what I find amazing about righteousness, there's a tendency, they say, when you point a finger at someone saying, look what that person did that's wrong, there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you. So when you highlight the incorrect attributes and actions of someone else, you're actually at the same time magnifying that which is inside of you that is 3 times as wrong. To really highlight the importance of Beatitude number 4, we're going to watch a little video. The video is called, What Does a Homeless Man Do with $100? And before we watch that video, would anyone like to share with us what you think a homeless man would do if he were given $100? Any idea? Okay, get something to eat. What else do you think you might do? Well, let's watch the video. What would a homeless man do if someone walked up to him and gave him $100?
When you give homeless people money, do you ever wonder how they spent it? Today I'm gonna give a homeless guy $100 and I'm gonna follow him and see how he spent it. Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right.
I'm Josh.
I'm Thomas.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I just tried to make him up to give me something to eat.
I just wanna give it back to people.
Yeah.
Not gonna be that much, but
Hey, anything's appreciated. Oh, goodness.
it's just $100 here.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, just keep it. It's your money now.
Oh, that's...
Just want, you know...
No, really, are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead, it's yours.
I'm starting to tear up
No,
over
it's
that.
okay.
Man, that's like incredible.
It's okay, it's all right.
Can I?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
I've never had this in my life.
Nice meeting you. I hope you can, have a good use of that money.
It will be, sir.
Okay, great. See ya. Yeah, just keep filming. Just make sure he doesn't see you. He just came out. What do you get? Oh, let's go across the street. Let's go. Let's go. Go follow him.
Giving them food.
I'm gonna talk to him.
You want some today? carrot chips?
Oh, because those are too hot for her.
Thank you.
Oh,
Hey.
hey, what are you doing here?
Hey, actually, come here. I need to talk to you.
Happy holidays, you guys.
Thank you.
I was following you the entire time.
Oh, yeah?
After I give you the money, we were there's a camera. My camera is right there. You see the camera?
Oh, yeah.
Do you even know them? Like,
No.
I feel like I owe you apologies because you went to a liquor store, right, earlier?
Oh, you thought I was going to get all smacked up drunk, huh?
I thought you were gonna buy like alcohol or something.
Yeah, but there's things money can't buy, and my own, I get a happiness out of what I'm doing. No.
Here.
I'm fine.
No, you just touched my heart. You know, this is another
It's
this is not $100.
No, this is.
I want I want you to keep it.
I'm stunned.
I'm stunned. I'm
I
stunned
don't know
by
what to say. Usually I'm pretty talkative.
how you end up to, you know, like where you're at right now.
Basically, I was living with my parents, and my stepdad had cancer, and they were getting hospice, but it didn't cover. The insurance only pays so much. I quit working because I had to be available. And so he passed away, and then 2 weeks later, my mother passed away from kidney failure. Building they're in is being sold, the condo, and I all of a sudden found myself homeless. That's been like 4 months now. And there's a lot of people that are just victim of circumstance, and they didn't go homeless because they're late, you know what I mean?
Lazy or like
No,
drug addiction.
It could be a divorce, and one thing leads to another. The man sells his boat, his home, everything, and all of a sudden he finds out he's got no money. And he's, you know, there's a lot of good people that are homeless. If you're doing good, you somehow be on a seam and you bump into good people. That's all there is to it. You're on a different path somehow in life. I can't explain it. Good seeing you again.
I can't believe that just happened. Wow.
Clearly, that's what it means to be righteous, is just to do the right thing. Is that man who was given $100, and the fellow who was filming him thought for sure he would buy himself liquor. He went into that liquor store, clearly not in the state of Pennsylvania because you can't get bread there, they tell me. But clearly he went into the liquor store and he bought bread and he bought food and he passed it out. So the fourth beatitude is very beautiful. Blessed are those who thirst for righteousness. And it really boils down to mean just those who do the right thing. And I'm sure you know folks in your life, especially folks you admire, perhaps your mom or dad or a grandparent, who just is always doing the right thing. And those people you admire, hopefully you can look in a mirror every so often and say to yourself, the person I see in the mirror isn't perfect, but the person I see is someone I'm proud of. The person I see is someone that for the most part, always does the right thing. Let's go to beatitude number 5. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Mercy is love toward those who are miserable, those that are wretched, those that need some type of help or assistance. Now, one person that clearly comes to mind when you think of those who show mercy, it is clearly Saint Therese of Calcutta. How she walked with the suffering, she lived with the suffering, she suffered with the suffering. She was just able to show that incredible styles of mercy. It was absolutely amazing. Let's continue. The merciful are those that are tenderhearted, who truly feel in the deepest part of their beings the pain and the suffering of those who need mercy. But most importantly is the fact that the mercy are those special individuals who go out of their way to make the effort to help. You know, I'll never forget when I was a young priest. Before the priesthood, you go to a funeral perhaps of a relative or a friend, and at that point was usually the parent or the grandparent of a friend. So for most of my early years in life, whenever I get to the funeral home, I would always see the normal size casket, the casket for an adult. When I was shortly ordained a priest, I had a person, this husband and wife in the parish. They had a 7-month-old baby, and their little baby died. So I remember going to the funeral home. It was going to be a blessing service at the funeral home, not a full mass. And when I got to the funeral home, I walked in. I noticed some family members of this husband and wife, and I had a conversation with them. And then I walked into the room where the little baby was located. And I remember walking into the room, and I looked around, and I couldn't see the little baby. I couldn't see the casket. So I thought, apparently I have the wrong room. So I went back out. I thought maybe that was just a little parlor. That's where everyone just sat and relaxed. There were a lot of people there. So I walked back out, and I went over to see the funeral director, and I said to him, I went into that room like you told me, but I didn't see the casket. Where is it? He said, it's right there. It's right in the far end of the room. It's right in the center. I didn't see a casket over there. Well, then he led me in, and then he took me up to the casket. And what I saw was something I wasn't prepared for. When I first entered the room, I was looking for a casket. All I'd ever seen in my life up to that point were caskets that fit an adult human being. So I walked into the room, and I'm looking for the casket that's about, what are they, 7 feet long? But I couldn't find one. And when the funeral director brought me in, and I looked in, then I was stunned. Surprising enough, at that point, as an early young priest, I wasn't prepared for what I would see. It turns out to be, and perhaps some of you know this, and hopefully not by your own experience, but it turns out to be that baby caskets, 7-month-old little one, they look like summertime coolers. They're not that big. They're only about that wide, only about that tall. And I remember when I walked up to the casket, and back then, you're going back a few years when I was a young priest, back then they had what they called, and these were real popular about 20, 30 years ago, Cabbage Patch dolls. Everyone had to have one. So when I walked in and I was taken up to the casket and I looked inside, what I actually saw was this little baby. I knew it was going to be a little baby, but it almost looked like a Cabbage Patch doll. And I looked at the little baby, and a couple of minutes after being introduced to the casket and to the little baby, I would need to start the prayer, the service. But when I walked up to the casket and saw that little baby, I just had a meltdown. I couldn't do it. I just looked at that little one, and it seemed so absurd to me because I was just used to big caskets. I was used to probably going to funerals of folks who lived in their high 80s or 90s, where death, although always difficult, makes a little bit more sense if a person's lived a long life and a good life, because unfortunately, none of us can live forever. So when I stood there and looked, my legs just got weak. I thought for a second I wouldn't be able to actually stand and hold my own weight. So I turned around, and as I turned around, the father of this little baby, he was approaching the casket. And I just ran right past him. I had to get out of there. And I ran into the men's room. And I'm in the men's room trying to figure out what I'm going to do, because I'm the priest that has been assigned to do the service for this little 7-month-old baby. So I'm in a men's room, and I'm just shaking. I'm trying to gain my composure. And the father of the little baby walks into the men's room. And instantly I said to myself, oh, I bet you this guy's mad. He's got to be really mad. I'm supposed to be the person who's to offer compassion and support. I'm the priest. I'm supposed to be the guy that's to hold up mom and dad. And I melt, literally in front of the casket and the body of their little one. And I run into the men's room. So when I saw Dad walk in, I didn't actually turn around and see Dad. As I'm facing the long mirror, I saw Dad's reflection in the mirror. And I thought, uh-oh, he's going to be upset. I'm not going to defend myself because I think he's right. It's indefensible what I just did. I kind of ran into the men's room. I'm trying to gain my composure. He's not going to be happy. He's probably going to tell me, look, We want the senior priest or someone else. So I'm standing there, and he walks over, and he hugs me. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to hug me. I wasn't ready for that. So I'm trying to figure out, when's he going to start yelling? Maybe the hug was just a preface to him letting me have it. And he hugs me, and he holds on to me, and he said to me, Father Ken, you can do this. You can do it. Come on back. He said, I'll be sitting right in the front row, and I'll be cheering you on. I thought to myself, well, this is strange, but I looked at him, I said, you think I can? He said, I know you can. Come on back. I said, okay, I'll be right on. So I threw some water in my face and tried to gain my composure. I said, God, I tell you, I know you're there, but if you could come on down here and help me out, that would be just fabulous. So I got back out, and there's Mom and Dad, and I talked to the wife, talked to the mom, and the funeral director came in and said that, okay, it's time for the service to get started, and Father Ken will conduct the service. I walk up to the casket the second time now. I am afraid to look in. I can't look in, but I did. I looked in, and I turned around, and I looked at the father, and what do you think this guy was doing? Want me to show you what he was doing? The dad. He's going like this. Got this big smile on his face. I'm going to do the service for his little one, and he's going like this to me. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. I got started and just sailed right through it. 35 minutes, got out the other side. Well, I'll never forget, and so once the funeral was over and we took the little one to the cemetery, another thing bothered me that I had never seen before up to that point. When you go to the funeral of an adult, there are typically 6 pallbearers, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. On that particular day for this little baby, inside of this little casket about that wide, about that high, with a top to it that they would put on, it was carried by his godfather, his uncle. The guy walks up, he picks it up like this, and he walks it out to the hearse. Wow, I thought to myself, I sure was never ready for that. The seminary taught us a lot of things, but they never taught us about baby funerals. And maybe they actually could never teach us about baby funerals, because it's something you have to just experience, perhaps. I remember after we laid his little one, Mom and Dad's little one, to rest in the cemetery, then they had a little reception afterward. When I got back to the rectory, I thought to myself, it was early afternoon, I thought, well, I'm going to drive out to their house. I need to apologize to these people for having this meltdown, for not doing my job in a much better way initially. So I drove out to their house to apologize. The mom or dad are there. And they're just in the kitchen, and they invite me in. And I said to the dad and to the mom, and especially to the dad, because he's the one that came in and got me in the bathroom. And I said, I came here to tell you guys I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to do the job that I thought I would. Oh, he said, Father Ken, it's no problem. He said, actually, you were the answer to my prayer. And I said to him, how was I the answer to your prayer? He said, because when my baby died, I kept saying to God, how am I going to get through this funeral and lay to rest my lovely little child? How can I get through it? And he said, God put you in my life. You were the answer to my prayers, because I spent my entire funeral day of my little one holding you up. And so that got me through the funeral. And I said to him, you stinker. You set me up. He actually set me up, because he prayed to God, help me to get through this. And the only way he got through it, by holding me up. We got through it together. So as it says right here, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Are those who go out of their way to make their effort to help. I want to share with you a little article I ran across. It's called Just Being There Makes All the Difference. That beatitude right there really is a beatitude about visiting people when they need your help, when they need lifted up. How important it is to go to a funeral home, to pay respects to someone either you know or don't know, but you might actually be propelled to go there because you know the son or daughter of the man or the woman who died. So you're going there to be supportive. And I've had a lot of people say that the last thing I do, I've had people tell me they don't go to funeral homes because they just can't deal with funeral homes. That is just really so unfortunate. Because when it is your turn, not necessarily your turn in death, your own death, but when it is your turn and you're laying to rest your wife, your husband, your child, your parent, and you're standing there at the casket, usually prior to, as there's usually somewhat of a receiving line. When people come in, you don't expect anyone to say or to give you answer to the question, why? There's not one person that can enter that funeral home, especially if it's a loss of a child, or the loss of a 16-year-old child, or the loss of a young teenage child. As you're trying to answer the question why, you know for a fact no one's ever going to be able to answer that question. But you will know at that point when someone comes in and they just walk up and they give you an embrace or they give you a hug or they simply say they're sorry or shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know what to say. That's always the best thing to say, is to say, I don't know what to say. And they move on and offer prayer and then they leave. You'll never forget it. I remember back when my father died back in the year 2000. He was just one of these guys. He was a mailman for like 30 years, and back in those days, he just knew a lot of people. He just had this incredible personality. So everyone in our town, he just had that something about him, that he was well known. And so his funeral visitation was just incredible. And I don't know, not to brag, but I guess in some ways he deserves this. But literally, in the funeral parlor, not only was the room full, but the line actually went through the parlor, outside, down the driveway, and literally up the road in a funeral parlor down in Murraysville. It probably stretched at one point to a half a mile. And it stayed that way for over an hour on the second night of viewing. And what's amazing is some people sign the book and some folks don't. But I always remember, as I would be sharing with family members after the funeral, just reassessing what all went on, I found that amazing. I couldn't remember who was all there. There were a lot of people there. But I could remember, and I knew who wasn't. I knew who wasn't there. There are very few people who weren't there. But as a name would come up, my family would be sharing a name, would say, yeah, he was there. A name would come up, and despite all the people that went through that line and went to the casket, we'd be able to say, wasn't there. For whatever reason, wasn't there, let us down. Why? How important it is to be merciful, to show someone support and mercy. It's called just being there makes all the difference. We either have been or we will be put in a position of comforting someone who is in grief. That is an important role played by good friends. The most common question I hear on such occasions is, what should I say? We want to help, but we feel helpless to make a difference in the face of such tragedy. I have often remembered a story told by Joseph Bailey when I struggled to say the right thing to someone who was hurting. Mr. Bailey lost 3 children to death. Over the course of several years, he lost these 3 children. He wrote a book called The View from the Hearse, in which he talks about his grief. He says this about comforting those who in fact grieve. He said, I was sitting torn by grief. Someone came and talked to me of God's dealings, of why it happened, of hope beyond the grave. He said things I knew were true. I was unmoved, except to wish he would just go away. He finally did. Someone else came up and just sat beside me. That person didn't talk. That person didn't say a word. That person just sat there right next to me. He didn't ask any leading questions. He just sat with me for an hour or more, listening when I said something. Answered briefly, prayed simply, left. I was moved. I was comforted. I hated to see him go. I have found Joseph Bailey's experience to be excruciatingly typical. Both men wanted to help Joseph. Both men cared, but only one truly comforted. The difference was this. One tried to make Joseph Bailey feel better in the light of losing 3 of his children over a span of several years. The other one just let him feel. The one tried to say the right things. The other one just listened. The one told him to be all right. The other just shared his pain. You see, when put in difficult positions of comforting someone in emotional pain, sometimes what needs to be said can be best said with a soft touch or listening ear. It may not seem like much, but it's more than you'll ever know. It's called just being there makes all the difference. What an incredible gift just to be there when someone is in the middle of losing someone they love. To offer them mercy. It might seem like a small thing, but it is really everything. Beatitude number 6. Blessed are the poor of heart, for they will see God. Out of the hearts of men come all kinds of evil things. Everything from evil thoughts and greed to slander and arrogance. All these things come from within inside of a man, from his heart. And this evil from the heart is what makes us all unclean. Therefore, to skip down a little bit, one of the most important questions that we can ask is how we can be truly pure in our hearts and clean of filth and sin. How we can be pure in our imaginations and our thoughts and our words and our decisions and our desires. How we can think what God thinks, what God wills, desire what God desires, hate what God hates, and love what God loves. The truth is, we can't do any of these things on our own. We can't reform ourselves, but we can clean ourselves. The pure of heart. When I was a priest down in St. Teresa in Uniontown, there was this fellow, he just showed up one day. His name was Doug. Doug had great difficulty talking. He just, I'm not sure what happened, but he just couldn't speak well. And Doug didn't have much. Doug just showed up. No one in town had ever seen Doug before, but he just showed up. And Doug got into this habit. I don't know where Doug was living initially, but I later found out. But Doug got into this habit of arriving to the 8 o'clock morning mass and just standing there with a torn jacket and tattered shoes and ripped pants. And he would be waiting for someone to give him something. And people would come up to me, not a lot of people, but every so often people would come up to me, and they were really upset. They would say, Father Ken, that guy out there is bothering us. Well, initially I thought, well, what did he say? I mean, did he accost you? I thought he was just standing there. So if he bothered you, that would mean he made some style of action towards you. So what did he do? Well, he didn't do anything. He was just standing there. Okay, let's get this right. So he was just standing there. He didn't touch you. He didn't reach out. He didn't accost you. He didn't assault you. He didn't say anything verbally negative against you. So his just standing there bothered you. Now, think about that video in the very beginning. What does it mean to be pure of heart? What does it mean to be a Christian? We like the idea that when we come to church, everyone's well-dressed, nice and groomed and clean. And people just walk in and people leave. But why would we be bothered of some guys just standing at the entranceway, not saying a word, in ripped shoes, ripped jacket, and torn pants. When if you might say hi to him and he would try to respond hi, you would say, I said something, but I'm not sure what he said. Now, the amazing thing is there was this one lady, God bless her little heart. Every Sunday, 8 o'clock Mass, when she would make it to Mass, she was one of the very few people who ever said to me, that man out there bothers me. She would always walk up on her way in the church, and she would hand Doug a $20 bill. Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. Now I forget, I was over at Westmoreland Mall. And Doug had been outside at that Mass for literally months. I just let him out there. Despite the fact all these people are upset that Doug's bothering them and he's not saying a word, so they just didn't like the idea of a challenge. That's what it was. Because he bothers me because I have the opportunity to pass him by and do nothing, or should I stop and do something? That's what bothered people. Because he's going to force me, maybe, to really live out my Christianity. I was at Westmoreland Mall, and Doug had been outside for 4 or 5 months in a row every Sunday. And I got there, and they had this store. You might remember the store. It's called Stephen Barry's. And Stephen Barry sold knockoff fake leather jackets, what they were. And they were pretty decent knockoff fake leather jackets. These things weren't too bad. Well, I didn't even know they were there. And because usually when I would go to Westmoreland Mall, I would just go to the store that I wanted to go to. So I would park either at the Sears store or go over to the Macy's side and just enter and leave. So I never really would take the time to go in. So this one day I'm taking the time to go in, and I see this Stephen Barry store, and I walk inside, and they're closing. They're having a big closeout. I thought to myself, oh, great. I just found out about this store that sells really nice leather, cheap knockoff leather jackets, and they're closing. Everything's on sale. Well, these jackets not on sale were typically $10. The sneakers were typically $10, not on sale. Well, the Stephen Barry's, these guys are closing. So everything 50% off. So these fake leather jackets are $5, and the tennis sneakers are $5. So I'm standing there, oh, Doug. And this isn't bragging about myself, because it's just really a minor thing, but it's going to lead to something else. Oh, Doug. Doug's about my size. So, and I would imagine maybe a shoe size is my size. They say my feet are smaller than normal, so I'll get him something bigger. And I picked out this really nice, cheap knockoff leather jacket. It had a big eagle on it. It had USA. It looked like really nice. $5 for the jacket, $5 for the shoes. So I put them in my car, and then they put them in a bag. I got them in a car and drove back down to Uniontown. And I couldn't wait for Sunday to roll around. I was so excited about Sunday. Ooh, I'm going to give these to Doug. Okay? Early Sunday morning, I get my stuff because I was the guy that unlocked the church doors. So I go outside, and I'm waiting for Doug. Where is he? Hopefully he didn't go back to wherever he came from. Hopefully he shows up this morning. He has for the last 4 or 5 Sunday mornings. And I could see in the distance, oh, there's Doug. He's coming, he's making his way toward the church. He got a little closer. I said, Doug, man, I'm glad you're here, buddy. Take that jacket off. I got you a nice jacket. Oh, he loved that jacket. He said, how much you spend for that jacket? Don't worry about it, Doug. I'm a big spender. Don't worry about the price. Don't worry about that. Don't get into that. My gift, buddy. I just, I'm letting loose here. So I gave him the jacket and I gave him the shoes. Shoes fit, so it was a good Lord. I picked the right size out. And Doug really looked great. So he put this stuff on. And I leave. I'm getting ready for Mass. He's apparently standing at the door, like he always did. The lady who always gave him the $20, now, for the first time ever, everyone else was bothered by the presence of Doug. But by the first time ever, this lady comes in the sacristy. She said to me, Father Ken, you ought to see that guy out there. I'm never giving him $20 again. I said, why is that? You should see the jacket and the shoes he's wearing. Oh, my God. So I had about 10 minutes before Mass. I ran out to the dumpster, and I ran back outside. I said, Doug, come over here, back in the corner of the church. Doug, you got to get that jacket and those shoes off. This thing's costing you a lot of money. You lost $10 already. I spent $5 for the jacket, $5 for the shoes. She gives you $20 every week, and she won't give you any money today. You're down $10. put this other stuff on. You know what that is known as what defines evil. What defines evil, just as it says, evil is what comes from within inside of a person and defiles them. It's when you have impure thoughts and somehow they become projectiles out of your mouth. And the folks who would say to me that man bothers me were folks who weren't willing just to look and say, as the homeless man, that could have been me, or that still can be me. Because stuff in life sometimes goes wrong. So when you see someone that doesn't have a whole lot, I think what we should be bothered by is the fact that, and scared, is that just might one day be me. The homeless man said what? Father-in-law, stepfather dies. Mom dies. They sell the place where they're living. He's thrown outside, and then he goes from here all the way down to there, and he never planned on it. What put Doug in the situation he was in? I don't know. I have no idea. What made Doug leave town? I have no idea. He was a stranger who blew into Uniontown one night and stayed for about 6 months and then jumped the train or back of a tractor trailer or found some produce truck to take him to another town, maybe for better luck. I'm not sure. But always that can become our existence. Our life can sometimes fall apart. What you always remember is before you say something not nice about someone you see standing holding a sign, homeless, help me, you might want to say that could be me one day. That could be. Let's take a look at Beatitude number 7. Blessed are the peacemakers. The peacemakers are those children of God who not only have great love for God, but also love for all mankind, and they attempt to do everything possible for the advancement of peace everywhere. The term peacemakers includes all who make peace between men, whether individuals or communities. It includes those who endeavor to make peace even when they fail. You know, I think of a peacemaker. I think of a lot of different moms that I've known from big families, but when you think of your mom, what you should always see sometimes in a parent and as a mother is the incredible gift they have of keeping the peace. My mom once described her mother, so my grandma had 9 kids, 5 boys and 4 girls, and she always described her mother as the cog in a wheel. You know, you get the wagon wheel, you got the spokes going out like this, and the mother is the cog right there in the center, and the spokes are the kids. And mom is always keeping everyone happy. Mom is always the peacemakers, so that when one of her sons says something negative about one of the daughters, mom is the one that says, no, wait, let's talk this thing through. Maybe your brother, what he did, maybe there was a reason why he did that. So the mother is always trying to be the source of peace. You know, but what happens in many families? What happens when mom passes away? Because in most families, no matter how many siblings, 2, 3, 5, or 9, or more than that, the mom is the cog in the center of the wheel. And she holds everything together. Everything gravitates back toward mom. Bishop Bosco, many years ago, I was having supper with him one day, and he told me that he was going to visit his mom in his nursing home. And he had an incredible definition of home. And a week or 2 later, he said to me that he was going home to visit his mom. And I said to him, well, did your mom, is she out of the nursing home? Did she go back to her house? No, she's still in the nursing home. I said, but you just said that you're going home to visit your mom. And he said, well, that's his definition of home. Home is wherever mom is at. That's home. Home is wherever mom's at. His mom was in a nursing home. And he said, I'm going home to visit mom, and actually she's going to be in this small room, and for him, that was home because that's where mom was at. That was where the peacekeeper was at. That's where the person who's at the cog in the center of the wheel, that's where she's pulling all of her family together. And on holidays, for the years that his mother was in a nursing home, all his brothers went to the nursing home. And they met at the nursing home in their little teeny-weeny little room, and she was in bed because she was feeble, and they were home because they were with mom. She was the peacekeeper. She kept everyone together. And I remember when she died, and I went to the funeral of his mom. And then he told me about a year after that, he said what he knew was going to happen has actually happened. And despite the fact that he had loving brothers, they were a loving family, but when you lose the center, when you lose the peacekeeper, the peacemaker, and all the spokes no longer can come back to the center, they all just go out that way forever. And they lose each other because there's nothing holding them together in the center. And that's always the peacemaker. Joanne is here. We will briefly do, when we are gathered back together in February, we'll briefly do Beatitude 8, and then we'll get into some other meaty things. But Joanne specifically told me to end at 7:45 because she has a survey that she wants everyone to take. So I will stop to give her that opportunity to do that. Thank you for being here. The Beatitudes are great. Do your best to live one out of the 8. And if you can live one out of the 8, guess what automatically happens? You'll be instantly living the other 7, whether you know it or not.